Yeah.
You've built quite a nice business for a kid. I'll call you a kid. I got 8 years on you,
Appreciate
right?
it.
You know, you've built a really nice business, and so right now in your story, we're at I'm independent and I've learned a hell of a lot and I'm grateful.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you get from that independent thing all the way over to what we know now?
Well, just like any other entrepreneur is going to say, it's just a constant dedication. You know, it's life, blood, sweat, tears.
Welcome to Bootstrapped Unicorns. Today's podcast was originally going to be named, "Let me introduce you to my crack dealer." I'm not sure that's appropriate. Your smirk is telling me that maybe it could still be named that, but the other day, I'm on the table, so I go to Dr. Michael Gampolo. He's a chiropractor. He's actually the one helping me heal up from the car accident that I was in. I'm feeling, I'm on the mend, and I'm grateful.
Seeing some good results.
Yeah, and so he's cracking my neck, and I'm like, hey, how did you start in this business anyhow? Why do you do what you do? And he started telling me this great story, and I'm like, oh, I almost wanted to pause him, and at the same time, I didn't want to pause because I wanted to hear the whole story. I'm like, this has got to go on the show. And so here we are. I'd like to introduce you to my friend. I've known him actually for a very long time, but he is now also my doctor, Dr. Michael Gampolo. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you having me on the show today.
Oh, I'm glad, and I think it's a great story. So give everybody a baseline really quickly.
Okay.
You are the proprietor of what business, and in short, what does this business do?
So I'm Dr. Gampolo. I am the owner of Orlando City Health and Wellness and co-owner of Walk-In Wellness. Mm-hmm. My primary clinic focuses on physical therapy, chiropractic, massage therapy. And then our newer clinic, the Walk-In Wellness brand, is actually full med spa. So everything from medical weight loss to IV therapy, vitamin injections, chiropractic, PT. So it's kind of like an all-encompassing wellness center.
And I've been there, and the vibe at the all-encompassing wellness center is very med spa.
Yes.
The other ones, I feel like I'm going to a proper doctor's office. Yeah. And then that one, I kind of feel like I should have like a Paris Hilton dog in my handbag or something, because it's nicely upscale. The design is beautiful.
Thanks. We appreciate that. I put a lot of energy into it. So.
I can tell. Yeah,
it's nice to hear that.
Yeah, and it's nice people all at every location. So the people thing, it seems like you've got a nice culture.
Yeah, that's the thing is developing the culture within the clinics, and that's the new part of the entrepreneurial spirit that we're taking on as we start to develop more of a practice management company to help other doctors and create that culture in their clinics. And so that's something new that is launching here shortly, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things when you do a podcast is you're supposed to silence your phone, but you're also supposed to silence your watch. So
I never wear mine.
And actually this one is, I don't know if you've ever had an Apple Watch die, but this one's on its way out, so it doesn't always listen to my fingers anymore. So that was an adventure. I haven't had that
problem yet.
Well, how old is yours?
Well, my wife bought mine about a year ago, and
I'm on year 6, which actually says a lot for Apple Watches.
Yeah.
But I think for me, now I need a new one. Anyhow, I digress. So let's. Actually, the practice management portion of this is something that I didn't expect you to bring up, and I didn't really know that was going to be a thing.
It's a whole back end that people don't even see. And so I think that's really important in healthcare, and that's where a lot of doctors go wrong, is that they don't have anything set in stone or systems to actually provide a customer service experience. They just are pounding the pavement, helping the patients, and then from there, we're all familiar with it. We've all been to doctors where we go to the office and the staff is completely disconnected from what we're having either experience with the physician or vice versa, and so it's really just bringing all of that together. And
awesome.
Yeah,
systems and processes. When you get into business, you're kind of focused on the product or the service,
of course,
and you're thinking about that as you start the business, and then you realize, there's other stuff to do.
Yeah. 5 years later, there's always something new that I'm going, okay, well, didn't know that.
How old is the business?
So the business itself was established in 2018.
Okay.
But I got started independently in 2017.
Okay. So, and let's go back to your roots for a second here. Yeah. In 2017, you're starting a business, and, I guess we should go way before then. Mm-hmm. At what point in time, maybe put a year or an age on it, were you unaware that you would end up becoming a chiropractor?
It was 2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah,
So what was that pivotal moment? How did you become aware that there was a new thing for you?
Well, that comes right back to what we talked about when we were in the office together. And most people that become a chiropractor, usually there's some story associated with it, you know, and it's some type of inspirational story, or sometimes it well, not so much anymore, but in the past, definitely. But yeah, mine's the same. You know, it was 22. I was in my senior year of undergrad, graduating with my bachelor's in science, and then I was kind of in that interim. Okay, well, let me start studying for the MCAT. Let me start studying for the GRE, you know, applying for grad school. I already had the GRE finished, and really into health and fitness. I enjoyed physical therapy, was working at a physiotherapy clinic, working with a PT, kind of like part-time, just shadowing, you know, doing the errands, the back-end stuff, and helping the PT anytime they needed. And it was like a 10, 15-hour a week type job. Also, you know, working through undergrad, you know, retail, things like that.
Okay, hold on, pause.
Yeah,
what
typical.
retail did you work?
Aeropostale, American Eagle, all of the standard.
So you can fold a shirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't like laundry. Still reminds me of work. And you can ask my wife about that one. So
who does the laundry? Your wife does the laundry?
Not as much as I would like.
So can we untag her from watching this episode? Is that a thing? Anyhow, keep going.
So back in undergrad, I was working out. And, well, let's start with the symptoms first, because I couldn't even link the workout and what happened to what I was experiencing. So around 21, 22, I'm driving from Orlando to Port St. Lucie, my hometown, and I could barely make the drive. Having to stop 3-4 times, dizziness, nausea, very, very bizarre symptoms. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's something to do with some of the supplements. I was also working at the vitamin shop at the time, you know, taking some nutritional supplements over the counter, things like that. But I never took anything that was really out of the ordinary. You know, multivitamins, you know, some creatine, things like that for working out. And so this goes on for a couple weeks, and we're back at my sister's house. I remember it vividly, and I'm like, I'm dying. I have a brain tumor. Something's wrong. We're like, I can't get through a drive or like anything that was like with movement. I was having a lot of difficulty with.
Did you make the mistake of going to like WebMD and, you know, like what? Okay, right, yeah. And it was either cancer or a paper cut, right?
Right. It was a brain tumor. Right.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I thought I had. And you know, what do? You're in your 20s. I was having times where I would just start throwing up when I was driving. It was really, really bizarre. And so
it's hard to live life that way.
It was difficult. Yeah. I went to the hospital like 2 or 3 times within that time frame. And so the third time I go to the hospital, of course, I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm vibrant. You know, I work out consistently. I mean, at this point in my life, I could go run 12 miles and run in a mid-7s pace. Like, I was in really great shape at that time. And so it was really bizarre to be like, what is happening? And this has to be something way off. And so I go to the neurologist, finally get an appointment in neuro, because you know how those guys are.
Yeah, it takes
60
forever.
days, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting down with him, and he's just kind of like, everything's fine. You know, everything's normal. And
you're sitting there going, no, it's not.
And so, and I hear this story a lot, you know, over my career, and this is, So, of course, what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing are two different things. Yeah. And most people are going to naturally start thinking, well, what is going on? You know, is it in my head? You know, and then when you're not, at the time, you know, I didn't have the knowledge of that I do now about the nervous system and how it can become affected. And so I'm transitioning from the PT clinic where I'm working, you know, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, you know, 10, 15 hours. I want to get something a little more serious, starting to graduate. And I see that a chiropractor has a similar model to what I have today, and he's hiring a physiotherapy assistant and a PT assistant. And I was like, well, let me apply for that position. And so I go to the position, and I'm sitting in his lobby, and he has one of those chiropractic nerve charts sitting in his...
like you've got on your wall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and, you know, I'm applying for the position, you know, ready to have the interview, and I look up and I see this nerve chart, and I start reading it, and I'm like, I have all of that. Like, all of that that's going on is that, you know, that I'm reading on this chart. And so I'm like, all right. So I go through the interview with the doctor, and, you know, I
so
meet
this like neck, cervical, spine stuff?
Oh yeah, all upper neck issues, and it's right there, clear as day on the chart.
I know fancy terms because he's my doctor and he keeps working on my cervical spine area.
Yeah, helping the nervous system, and so I'm reading it, and it's a nervous system chart. Headaches, dizziness, nausea, fatigue, upset stomach, all these very bizarre symptoms that can stem from the upper neck, upper motor neuron as we consider it, area, and so I'm going, wow, I have all of that. So I do the interview with the chiropractor, and I didn't add this story to you, but as I'm having the interview, the chiropractor I'm interviewing with, he's like, you're going to become a chiropractor. And I didn't even tell you that part in the story, but it was really funny because he's like, most people that come in with what you have like a passion for, he's like, they don't become a physical therapist. They go on and become a chiropractor. And this is like, he's having this conversation. I'm like,
he's looking into his crystal ball.
Right. And then not only that, the first thing I said when I pulled up to his office was, I didn't know anything about chiropractic. First thing that came out of my mouth was, does this shit even work? That's the first thing I thought.
Well, and unfortunately for chiropractic, it gets a weird rap depending on who you're talking to. In fact, I've even been warned by a couple of people, like, are you sure you want to go to a chiropractor? Yeah. I've got a family member who's in risk management in a major theme park organization. He deals with a lot of accident claims.
Yeah, of course.
And so they internally kind of have a negative view of chiropractic, which is really unfortunate because it's saving my life right now.
Yeah, and I can totally get into that later. And that's something that most people don't even know anything about. So Wilkes antitrust lawsuit, I'll go all into that.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's something most people never even heard. But that's fun. It's fun to educate. And so I had the interview with this chiropractor, and he's like, listen, I'd love to have you. And I'm like, aside from wanting to work here, I just want to let you know a little bit about my health history if you have some time. And he's like, of course. And so I started telling him, like, listen, I'm looking at your nerve chart. He had the nerve chart in the x-ray room as well where we had the interview. And I'm like, I have all of these symptoms. I've been to neurologists, I've been to doctors. I literally can barely drive from Orlando to my hometown, and I love going home and seeing my family. And so it was a big deal. And so he's like, wow, it sounds like you might have an atlas issue or your first bone. Let's shoot an x-ray. Let's do it right now. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So like, he's like, you're hard, let's do it. Like, so he shoots the x-ray, marks the films, he's showing me what's going on with my first bone and atlas and how it's transitioned. He's like, something had to have happened. My neck is in complete reversal. Yeah. So I was ran in 3 times before I was 22. I got ran in high school twice. One was a hit and run. And then another, football injuries, sports injuries. So I went, my neck was obviously at this point predispositioned to having some a trauma in the past, and then being able to maybe not be as stable as it should have been.
Sure.
Especially at the age. And so he's like, something happened that popped and clicked this, or something moved this. And it's funny because when he said that, I was like, actually, about a couple months ago, 3 months ago, when a lot of this started, I was squatting and I was doing about 315, going up to about 405.
You were really working out heavy.
Oh yeah, like 3 sets of 12, like really ripping into it. And so I remember I rolled the bar up and I heard, like, in my neck, right, pops, and I'm like, something doesn't feel right. I kind of just actually stopped. I just stopped altogether. And usually, at this point, I didn't really stop. I was kind of like, just go, a little different when you're in your 20s.
Yeah, a lot different.
Yeah, a lot different. And so I remember that moment, and I'm like, yeah, actually, about when these symptoms started, I had the bar roll on my neck, and I heard a pop. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that had to have been it. So what's he do? He's like, let me lay on the table. Let's start working on it. Okay, 2 weeks, literally everything changed. And within those 2 weeks, week number 2, after having all my symptoms pretty much go away, because he worked on it that day, worked on it the next week. I was driving. I went home to Port St. Lucie, 0 symptoms, everything feeling back to normal. And literally the next week, I'm like, I'm going to become a chiropractor. And so I call my mom on a Friday. I remember this. And I'm driving to his office to go to work. And I'm just like amped up. I mean, I'm gung-ho for chiropractic, Yeah. I'm like, all the patients are like, they're like, this guy loves this. I'm like, well, if you went through what I was going through and then now you're experiencing and seeing the difference with the patients, you just get, it's such a passionate thing, And so I call my mom like, hey, I'm going to become a chiropractor. Like, I didn't know anything about this. Like, and it's so funny because my mom's like, my favorite doctor was Dr. D'Onofrio, and he was a chiropractor. I'm like, what? And he did all my sports physicals, everything growing up, right? So this as a kid. I didn't realize that he was a chiropractic physician. I just knew he was a doctor. And so I'm like, wow, okay, well, if that wasn't, you know, the icing on the cake, you know.
I'm
wonderful.
glad your family was like, this is good.
Yeah, no.
It could have been the opposite.
Yeah, Mom was amped. She was excited. She's like, yeah, absolutely. You know, go on, become a chiropractor. That's amazing. And it happened really fast. You know, it was my senior year. And I was about to graduate in December, and this is all happening probably around like August, the beginning of the semester. And I was like, I'm going to start applying for grad school. And within 2 months, I was accepted into the program because, remember, I had everything already ready for PT. And,
right, yeah. So you were already on a bit of a medical track. This 100%. Is not like you went from, I don't know, an engineering degree to
chiropractic. Yeah, no, I was already on the track of wanting to help people and do that. So
that's amazing. So you're coming out of college, you're going into a chiropractic school now. How long's chiropractic training?
So it's usually 4 to 5 years. Our program in Florida through Palmer is a 3.5-year accelerated program. So you don't get breaks. You just keep just go. It's a full-time job. You know, in class, you're literally in class 36 to 40 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's about, you know, 8 to 12 exams every other week. Yeah. So it's a dedication, you know. And the chiropractor I was working for at the time, you know, he sat down and explained that to me before I went off. And he said, listen, you know, you've been with me for 5 months. I think, you know, if I could redo it and give myself advice, he's like, I would take a little longer. I would work, get a little bit more experience, understand the business side, understand the, you know, documentation, working inside an office. So that way, when you do graduate in the future, you're going to be more prepared. And I took his advice. And so I stayed and worked with him I pushed off grad school for about, you know, I want to say about 6 to 8 months to get, you know, about a year of experience of real work life experience. Yeah. It also helped to save a little bit of money before going to grad school. And then
that's a very poor existence.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then, and so it was a really great idea. And I'm really thankful that he gave me that advice.
So that's awesome. So you go into grad school, and I'm sure you were just focusing really on learning the craft.
Oh, yeah.
But was the plan during that, like, gee, I'm going to go start a business? Or was it, I'm going to go back work for the same doctor?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to go back and work with the doctor I was obviously coming up under. So I knew that I kind of had an idea of like what to expect if I graduated. Mm-hmm. And so again, I'm just really thankful for the experience I did have with him. And I did know at that time I wanted to become a chiropractor and eventually own my own office, but eventually, yeah. I wouldn't say it was like I'm going to graduate and then I'm going to be gun-ho and then go open my own clinic.
How'd that roll then? So you go and graduate, and what actually happened in life?
Yeah, so it's you know, going through school, pounding the pavement, graduated, and then that was in 2015. Okay. And so I took an internship, a preceptor internship with a local doctor actually just down the street here, who used to work in the clinic with the clinic that inspired me to become a chiropractor. And so I worked with him for a little bit, you know, building up a little clientele, and definitely what I recommend for a lot of chiropractors coming out of school, because then you're not doing it on your dime, you're doing it on someone else's. And it's kind of a great way to not only build confidence, but, you know, with our profession, it's not as simple as just hanging, you know, a sign and being like, hey, I'm here, right? Or like, you know, relying on friends and family, which I'm sure you're aware of, are usually either your worst clients or worst patients.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's the truth.
Don't work for or with family if you can avoid it.
Yeah, if you can avoid it, just avoid it. And so I worked with him for a while. He gave me a lot of extra insight as now that you're a doctor, there's a lot more to learn. And unlike medicine, which, you know, medicine, huge conglomerate. I mean, hospital systems, you know, ortho, neuro groups. And so they, you know, as a medical student, you're going to graduate, you're going to do your 4-year internships, you're going to, you know, be doing your residencies. And so you're getting that real life in-world experience. Was chiropractic, you know, when we graduate, it's kind of like, all right, you're on your own now. And so that's something that a lot of times people don't understand. Yeah. And so for me, I was like, I'd rather make less and learn more than try to earn as much as I possibly can and then not learn anything, and then you end up on that, you know, that hamster wheel where now, there's a certain point where when you start to make good enough money that you're like, do I really want to give this up to open up my own clinics and then, have the risk? And so I'm happy I did it the way I did. Yeah.
So what year did, and you already said this on the show, but I got to remember here, was it 2018 that you opened the clinic?
Yeah, 2018 is when I established the LLC, but 2017 I was independent. I was starting to go independent.
Yeah, okay.
Starting to.
So, and it sounds like there's a difference, though, between going independent and starting a clinic.
Yes, yeah. So about 3 years. So graduated 2015. I'm working with the doctor that I was discussing that I used to work for in the past. About 6 months or so, and then I was like, I got a good opportunity to go work with an ortho neuro group that is opening up a clinic in east side of Orlando. Mm-hmm. And so I took up the offer, and they actually reached out to me, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they're like, listen, we're gonna pay you. You can work the east side of Orlando, whatever you bring in there, that's yours. But we need you to focus on an office that we're growing in Merritt Island. And I was like, okay, not exactly what I want to do, but I'll take it because it's a good opportunity. Well, it just so happened the office that was in Merritt Island was located inside an OBGYN clinic.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So, which was pretty unique because, I had some clinical experience with pregnancy and working with, autos and auto accident patients and things like that. But this is kind of like what was enhancing it. So I go to work in both clinics. So I was like splitting time between Merritt Island and East Orlando, which is really unique. And that's where I started to learn a lot more of working with like OBG and pregnancy patients for chiropractic and some pediatrics, because just the clinic itself was located inside a OBG clinic.
That's an interesting angle on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is it a specialty then in order to work on somebody who's pregnant? It's a unique health experience. I'm sure there's new things with the body that has to be cared for.
Oh, absolutely. And there are specialties for chiropractors. And so one of those is, pregnancy chiropractic physicians or OBGYN type of pregnancy chiropractors. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a specialist with it, but I have the in-world experience where I did work directly with an OBGYN. And so I learned a lot with, picking his brain and talking to him about, what to expect throughout the growth period, right, of the fetus and the baby. And so that was really cool. And then I did understand a lot of it from the anatomy and physiology part, because when I was in grad school, I taught, I was an assistant professor for the anatomy and physiology professor.
Oh, wow.
So I was a little bit more understanding or had a little bit more knowledge and of the ovarian cycle and the menstrual cycle and things like that. So yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing, and I didn't know that because you really don't seem to advertise it that direction, because you're a generalist to me.
Yeah.
So the audience should know that, so when I go into the office, and it is a large practice in my opinion. I mean, it's a lot bigger than just one guy with a table.
Yeah.
And so I go in. There is a receptionist. There's sometimes a second person there who looks like they're doing medical billing work. You've got your marketing person in the next office over. You've got your physical therapist. You've got an office for massage therapy. You've got 2 doctors on staff that I know, plus yourself in 2 clinical rooms. There's a lot going on when I walk in there, and that is a far cry from the description of a freelance practice or independent, So there was. At what point, did this creep in, or did you go, okay, I'm going to build this? And then, by the way, there's 3 total locations? 3?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, right. So you've built quite a nice business for a kid. I'll call you a kid. I got 8 years on you,
Appreciate
right?
it.
You've built a really nice business. And so right now in your story, we're at I'm independent and I've learned a hell of a lot and I'm grateful. Mm-hmm. But how do you get from that independent thing all the way over to what we know now?
Well, just like any other entrepreneur is going to say, it's just a constant dedication. It's life, blood, sweat, tears. But it started with a few credit cards. I mean, yeah. So as a chiropractic physician, I just bought my first home. I was making a transition out of the other clinic I was working with at the time, and it was either make it or break it. I was looking into loans, and one thing that you don't learn, especially when you don't have as much experience, is that if you want to get qualified for a loan, you need to have some business experience, right? Or you need to have some financial backing. And so I didn't have that per se, So I was like, all right, well, we're going to either make this or break this. So 3 interest-free credit cards, business LLC, and worked out a deal with a buddy to rent out of his space, and paid my rent and started treating patients. And every weekend was just hitting the pavement, getting out there, meeting and greeting people, and just letting people know where I was at, because it was just me at the time. Literally, check-in process was me, meeting the patient, marketing, everything was a one-man show. And so it was just me, the patient, and everything went just slowly like that. I mean, that's essentially how I got started.
Okay, and so when... That sounds exhausting.
It was.
At what point do you go, all right, I can't do check-in anymore, I need to make a hire? Or actually, I should ask, what was your first hire?
Yeah, so my first hire was actually Mark. In an interesting story, I was walking on the beach in Sebastian and fishing, and I come across this guy, and we're talking, and he's like, oh, I'm a UCF student, I want to be a physical therapist. Like, man, I'm a chiropractor and actually need some help at the office. He's like, I'll come help you. And now, fast forward 5-6 years later, Mark's actually a licensed physical therapist. And so that was interesting. And that's how I met my first hire on the beach in Sebastian.
It's a weird lesson to pass on to other entrepreneurs. Go fishing on the beach and find your first hire. I guess serendipity does happen, though.
It does. It happens like that. And then I had one of my patients who referred her friend over, and she came to the office and dropped off a resume, and she said, listen, I'm about to graduate, I want to get all the experience. And her name was Mary, and Mary was just phenomenal. Mary joined the team, and she was with me for about 4 years before she relocated. So and we miss Mary, but
Sure.
she's doing bigger and better things, and we want nothing but the best for her. So
okay, so that was your first 2 hires.
First 2 hires, yeah. So Mark was first, and then Mary. And what's interesting in the beginning, everybody we hired started with the letter M. So you had Dr. Michael, obviously me, and then we had Mary, Mark, and then we had Maddie. It was really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
You finally broke. Now we have an Olivia in the mix.
Yeah.
You broke the trend.
Diversity.
Yeah, that's right. That's a weird version of diversity, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? Different alphabet letters.
Alphabet diversity. It's a thing. Check it out. Go Google that. So, I will tell you personally, my first hire was scary AF.
Yeah.
And it was because I had to take budget that didn't really exist
Yeah.
and believe that I could grow. It's kind of like the grow your wings on the way down thing. Like, I know I can get through 2 months of paying this person, so here we go. I'm going to hire this person, and I know for at least 8 weeks they won't know that I'm a fraud. And then you go, oh, I got more work because they freed up more time. This works. I can pay them for another 8 weeks, and then suddenly you've got them for years, and you realize that worked. What was your experience of the first hire? Like, how did that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, right? Because exactly what you said. You're thinking, okay, well, what's sustainable?
Yeah.
How long can I, pay this individual? And obviously, you want to make sure they're paid fairly. And so I would say it comes down to volume, or it comes down to however many patients on the schedule, where you start to realize that you can't do the notations, you can't see the next patient, and you can't do the billing all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, and we did all of it. I did all of it in the beginning, and which is kind of crazy. But that's what makes the new industry that we're doing with the, practice management part of our company that we're creating on the back end to help other doctors, because it's like, listen, I did it. And I really think it's important for doctors to understand what is your front desk doing, how to understand the billing, understand the patient, notations and the notes, and the insurance. And so, I would say probably around 10 patient visits a day is when it really starts to get okay, I can't really keep up.
Got it. Well, you have such throughput right now. It makes sense that you've had to scale the size of your staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm watching practice management happen from a client perspective right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so I get, the moment I book my appointments, I'm getting text messages, I'm getting email reminders When I come in, everybody's expecting me. Like, it seems to be working that you've got some systems and processes in place.
Yeah.
Did you invent these systems and processes? Are you finding things off the shelf? Are you modifying the off the shelf if you're finding them? How are you handling this?
So I've always had systems in place. That's how my brain works. And I think it's the best way for most doctors' brains to work, because you want to make sure you're reaching certain criteria to make sure your patients are progressing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is kind of combined from what I've seen in the past, and then what other offices I've worked for, which is, again, great that I was able to get that experience. And then just really combining everything. And now what we're doing is on a whole other level. I mean, the new steps that we're doing are including, automated messages, automated systems, and really educating patients on, what to expect, because we do offer so much at this point that I think really getting that direction across, like, listen, that first treatment isn't going to be the end all be all. If you really want to get into the cupping or the grassing or the massage therapy or, the ultrasound or the, you name it. Shockwave therapy, that we can kind of like target, like, here's everything we have to offer, but really getting that across is hard,
right?
Especially when someone's in pain or they're looking for a quick fix, or they see one patient doing this and they're like, well, why am I not getting that? So
right.
So that's the new thing, is to automate all of the systems, and we're going to be even better at it come 2024.
Oh, certainly. Well,
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you've taken the step to, like, you've hired LJ, which, of course, you audience don't know who she is, but I talk with your staff as I'm getting my PT and stuff, and I'm watching what they're doing with, you actually have a staff member working on these automations every day. This is not like you hired a freelancer who's going to work 2 hours a night, 3 days a week. I mean, this is 40 hours a week. You're committing to building these systems and processes. And I think we both know, Jordan, formerly Jordan Law, now Driven Law.
Oh, yeah. Love Jordan. Great guy.
Phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And he is so clear on systems and processes in the legal market. And I'm getting a similar feeling from you that, like, he actually gets hired to diagnose issues or find opportunities to get better in other people's law offices, so they can get their systems and processes firing on every possible cylinder so that they can thrive on behalf of their clients. And I'm hearing a similar story, and I don't know if you've drawn that analogy, but he's wildly successful.
Right.
And I would say actually you are too, but you haven't established the same scale that he has, but you're literally doubling down on it right now. So I guess the question, and one, it's a commendation, like, wow, just wow. I'm impressed, because I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs have the guts to do what you're doing.
It's a lot.
Yeah, but so I guess I want to know, what's the vision? Like, it's for you, but you've said twice now that it's kind of for others. Like, what is this is this a side business? Is it a new business? Is this a consulting practice? Is this I give a gift to the industry thing? What are you doing?
It's purpose, man. It's purpose. It's changing lives,
Okay.
and doing it at a higher level. And the reality is, I'm just an individual.
Right.
So, like, that's what I've come to realize. You start to realize, hey, I can do this in this clinic, but what about all the other clinics across the nation? What about across the world? And so I think the purpose is bigger than me. And so, that's why for 5 years, I was like, I'm going to have a nonprofit clinic. I want to be so successful. We have a clinic that literally patients come to, and we don't even make a collection. We just say, what do you want to donate? And like, so it's so much bigger.
You're a hippie?
Socially liberal. Yeah.
You love people.
I love people.
Yeah.
And so I want to see that happen, and I think we've been speaking into an existence for a while. But it's like, how do you do that then?
Yeah.
Well, you have to have, as a faith-driven entrepreneur, right? As like they say, you have to give back, but then you have to also make, because you need to survive, and my staff needs to survive, and so it's going to become something bigger by ultimately changing the landscape of healthcare. That's the way I look at it. And then that way we can also help other doctors grow their clinics and grow their practices and change the landscape of their community as well.
So you're a faith-driven crack dealer for a cause. That's going to be your new business card. You opened the door to this, and I'm actually really curious, because we've had some great conversations over coffee about being, basically a Christian in business, I guess, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I appreciate about some people who have a faith background in business is that they don't wear it on their sleeve in a way where they're marketing using Jesus, right? And I've done some rants that actually never got published, to tell you the truth. I was looking right into this camera over here.
Yeah.
And I had just dealt with an entrepreneur who sold Jesus and didn't sell his product, and his product was terribly, woefully underdeveloped with no apology for it, but he still wanted to bill high because Jesus. And it was tragic to watch that happen, but we know that happens actually all too often.
Yeah.
And so my experience of your business now as a patient, and then of course having been a friend for so long, you've clearly got a different approach to being a faith-driven person who happens to be an entrepreneur. But I will also say that your example in life is so strong that the curious might go, why are you different? Which I've always appreciated. What thought do you give to faith and business, and what is your philosophy and ethos?
Well, I think ultimately whatever you're putting out there, you're going to attract. It's the law of attraction.
Yeah.
And whether that's the belief in Jesus Christ or the belief in Buddha or whatever it is, but that's just the way I look at it. It's whatever you're going to put out is ultimately you're going to receive. And so if you're treating people, which we do, which is really unique, and as I like to remind the staff, is really a common core of humanity. We need to be together. Take someone and put them in solitary confinement and watch how fast they deteriorate, right? So, as much as we all love technology, I think, having that human touch, and essentially what chiropractors do is literally touch patients. I think that's powerful. And so, I guess that's kind of, what it is.
Right.
Yeah, especially with our profession. It's easy to kind of combine the two. And so...
Well, it's genuine care.
Yeah, it's what's designed to be. It's the way it was always designed to be. But, insurance and things like that make it a little bit more difficult. And it is a pay-for-service, right? Because it is a service that's being provided. But I think if you're doing it from the heart, people understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can feel it in the office. I mean, again, back to the original culture comment at the beginning.
Yeah.
You've got a building full of people who care, and you know it.
And we even have that as part of our back end that we're doing, where we have a system in place now with LJ, where we're developing, what each person's strengths are and how that actually combines as part of the culture and the team. And we're working on that part too now. Yeah,
that's cool. Do you ever do personality assessments on your team or anything?
So pretty much that's what that is.
Okay.
And so we just started incorporating that because my personality is like the football coach that kicks the door open and is like, "We're gonna kick some ass today," Not everybody's gonna just love that, but it's true.
Yeah.
And and sometimes you gotta have someone that's gonna step in and say, "Here's what he really means, and this is the direction we're going."
That sounds like a comedy sketch. You just got the doctor that comes in and rallies the troops and threatens everybody a little bit, and then gives them the old gipper, and then you've got the translator right next to him that brings it all down and puts it in business speak.
Puts it in business talk.
Yeah.
But I think this is part of an entrepreneurial spirit, though.
A little bit, yeah. If you don't have a fire in your belly, then you probably should be doing something else.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult to make it out, or just to even keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot recently about the idea that you're going to grow yourself out of a job. And in some ways, I think every entrepreneur needs to do that in the sense that I am so proud of the people I work with and want to give them more so that they can shine in what they do. And I don't want to micromanage, so I'm trying to pull myself into the things where my strengths are, and I know you're actively doing that right now. So what steps are you taking to handle that?
It's all investments. I mean, it's time, right?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing I think for any entrepreneur is to understand that time is so valuable. And in the beginning, it's hard to understand because your time's not worth anything. When you give up your career and you are, like, hey, if I lose my house, I lose my house. Like when you come to that realization, you start to realize, okay, but your time does matter. And like I said, if I'm as an individual, I can only accomplish so much. So having more outreach, talking, doing more shows, meeting more entrepreneurs, becoming more engulfed in the community.
Yeah.
That all requires time and energy.
It really does.
And as much as I love to help patients and I want to continue helping patients, but I think there has to be a realization with patients to understand also is that, when you come to our clinics, we have 5 chiropractors. I have literally 5 other chiropractors that work with us. These are the same chiropractors you're going to meet in any other clinic that you go to, whether it's with us or someone else. And if you don't jive with one of them, we're not going to take it personally. We have another guy, It's like next man up, right?
Yep.
So just work with the other chiropractor. And then, we have a physical therapist as well. So maybe chiropractic is not even what you want to do in general. Hey, I was involved in the auto injury, I was referred here for chiropractic. As much as I want to continue getting better here, I'm wondering if maybe there's another option. Well, we have that option. You can do more natural holistic physical therapy. And then obviously we have 6 different massage therapists. So it's like if you're upset with one or you're not as happy as you want to be, find the one you jive with. We all have great hours. And I think that's the big thing for me is starting to pull back a little bit more on the being on hands with the patients and setting my time and making sure we have that available for patients that definitely want to see me.
Yeah.
But they have to respect my time and they have to respect that just like any other doctor's office. If you're requesting a very specific doctor, then you may need to work with their schedule. And so that's a tough transition.
Yeah, that does make sense. So 2030 is 6 years away. What does your practice look like in 6 years?
That's right. So
what's the vision?
Yeah, the vision is multiple clinics. The vision is rebranding. So we're rebranding.
You're doing that now, right?
Yeah. We're becoming the OC Health. So we're gonna kind of keep it simple. Rebranding, restructuring, and really managing multiple clinics, and I will always have to have some patient care because it's just part of who I am. And it's just like I can't get rid of that part. So 6 years I will still be treating some patients, but I foresee 5, 6 clinics, not necessarily owning them outright like I do currently, but having other doctors that do own them, that are bought into the system, and maybe even more, and more of like a, I want to say like a franchise or a licensing type of agreements. To do all the processes and protocols and do it right.
Yeah, so let doctors be doctors, and they can trust the system that you've created.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal.
Very, very cool. So how can people find you? How can patients discover you?
Yeah, so the best way to reach us is by searching us online. You can find by putting in Orlando City, like the soccer team, health and wellness, or you could search for Dr. Michael Gampolo. It starts with a G, A-M, polo like a t-shirt, and so that's the best way to kind of reach out is find us online. We have a pretty significant social media presence, as I'm still pounding away at the social media, and that's starting to pick up a little bit. We are starting to have some patients come in and they're like, I see your socials, or a patient that was driving by was like, I was driving by and then I saw you on my phone and then I looked up your reviews, and it's kind of funny. It kind of comes.
Let me ask you, how long have you been pressing on social media?
Probably the past year has been the biggest press.
Okay.
And because usually I'll press and then take my foot off.
Right, which unfortunately puts you right back at square one.
Right, exactly. So you got to just continue hammering away and creating those systems and continue pretty consistent content. And so that's kind of where we're at this year, is just kind of just pedal to the metal and just keep rolling and, reinvest. In the beginning, like I said, I didn't qualify for loans. So I do qualify now because of what we've built, and I'm proud of that. And, now we can reinvest in new systems and new protocols and new doctors. And so it's exciting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming out here. Your story makes way so much sense. It's just, your passion had to come from somewhere. And when you've gone on a wellness journey the way you have, that, it connects well. So I am living proof that chiropractic works and that Dr. Gampolo knows what he's doing, because for those of you who have been following, you may know this, but back in September of 23, I was rear-ended, my car was totaled, and oh my, did that hurt, with a couple slip discs, thyroid damage, concussion, whiplash. It's been a thing. I was actually having temporary memory loss. That was scary as it gets. Yeah. And as you remember, I was having temporary memory loss, and I'm sorry, that was me making a joke.
We're gonna have to adjust you right after this.
Yeah, that's right. Please, yeah, if you could, crack me. You want to do that on camera? No, we don't have a table here, but I would encourage you as a viewer to take your health seriously, because you're probably an entrepreneur and you can't afford to be stopping 4 times on the road to go throw up, and you can't have sleepless nights because of your back and your neck. So wellness ahead of the storm makes a lot more sense than going through the storm and wondering how you're going to get better. So if you're not near Michael's office, find a chiropractor near you and maybe just get an eval, because I know I wasn't getting tune-ups myself, and so then I go and I get in a car accident and I'm desperate for it, and I'm so grateful that I already knew you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, but so just as a testimonial and an encouragement, we can't afford to be down. And so don't take that risk and go find some chiropractor you can trust now. And the one that I personally trust and endorse, if you're in the Orlando area, is Dr. Michael Gampolo. So, yeah, man, I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. Great journey to watch. If you're also a chiropractor watching this, he's understanding system and processes that you probably don't. So call him. He's nice.
Yeah, we're here for you.
Do you have anything else to add? I would interview people and I go, and this is for documentaries. I had a famous last question, which was, what do I not know to ask? Is there something that I should ask you that I don't know?
That you don't know. I think you know quite a bit. We've met each other a few times.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah. We're good. Yeah. So, out of curiosity.
Is just, that's a really good question, actually.
Okay, really one thing that I do wonder, because he brought his puppies in the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so on a personal life level, I know as an entrepreneur, I've had seasons where I have to work almost 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And try to strike a balance. And I'm trying to figure out for you, what does that look like? Because you've just got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, so actually, going back to the question you just asked, what you don't know, I love travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. I think it's an entrepreneurial spirit to see the world, and I love to do it. And actually, my wife and I joke around, it's the only time we really get to spend together.
I'll bet. Well, she's busy too.
Oh, she's a hustler, and I could get into that, but that's that's a whole other story. Yeah, Amanda is she works hard.
TV personality, realtor,
full-time realtor, not part-time, like full-time. And so she's hitting the pavement from 3:30. She's up before me, and
Really?
most entrepreneurs don't meet people that's up before them.
That's right.
So but she's up 2:30 in the morning and she's hitting the pavement till in the afternoon, evening. So kudos to her. She crushes it too.
I guess we may have to have her on the show.
Yeah. With a lot of coffee.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, we pull that off. Okay.
I appreciate that.
It's Black Rifle coffee.
Yeah. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
And I would say ultimately, if you're listening to this and you are an entrepreneur, is that your health is another investment, just like you're going to make other investments.
Right.
Whether it's your Roth or your 401ks or, all of the things that we're striving to achieve with our business, that your health is an investment, is not an expense. And I think once you come to that realization, you also realize, okay, it's worth investing and it's worth me taking some extra time for, and it makes a big difference.
Awesome. That's a great place to leave it. Go get healthy. Be a powerful entrepreneur. It starts really with your body. You can't get rid of your body. You're stuck with it.
It's the only one you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm Josh Pies. This has been Bootstrapped Unicorns. Episode number, I don't know. You know how I roll. And I actually don't know who the next guest is, because that's okay. What we do know is that the next episode is going to be another great entrepreneur who's got a story to tell that's instructive. It's got purpose. It's got value for you. You can learn something to apply to your business. And again, Dr. Gampolo, thank you so much for coming on today. I always learn something from our guests, and I always learn something from you. And I feel better hanging around you, too. You're just a happy dude.
Yeah. Well, feeling good also makes you happy.
Heck yeah. We'll see you on the next episode.